Welcome to TLC Academy. My name is Alan Sousie, and I'm presenting today some information that I think will be helpful in terms of improving professional communication. I title this Tips for Improving Your Professional Communication. Many problems arise in work each day simply as a result of poor verbal communication. One can be extremely hardworking and a very intelligent worker, but to be optimally effective professionally, you have to have a good and impressive communicator. Because opportunities are limited to win the attention and confidence of your boss, your fellow workers, and other colleagues, you kind of have to work hard to create a positive first impression. Doing your work well is important to yours and your employer's reputation. But what may be more important is presenting you, the worker, as well. Your clients need to see you in the same light as your colleagues and your boss. So here are some tips to help you improve your communication skill. First and foremost, be positive, be transparent, and be yourself. Begin a conversation positively and confidently. Nervousness and overexcitement lead to stammering and sometimes ineffective communication as a result. You need to learn to keep control of your emotions. Be very careful about what you say and how you say it. Use I statements instead of you statements. And stay focused on presenting objectively and presenting the outcome of your conversation as you see it. If there's a potential for conflict, start off with a topic on which you both agree, and then move to your concerns. Maintain calm and avoid aggressive language at all times. Explain the benefits and the advantages to be gained at the very end of your conversation. So succinctly, use I statements, stay calm, state the facts, offer the conclusion you want, and then wait for your response from your person that you are communicating with. That is being assertive. Another technique is use your voice. Self-confidence is essential when you're speaking. To keep the listener's attention, modulate your voice. Speak more loudly or softly, more quickly or slowly increase interest in what you say. Pause before and after you make a key point to allow it to fully register. These will help to improve the quality of your communication. Another critical element is keep eye contact. Your eyes are the windows to your soul. Maintaining eye contact with those to whom you are talking face to face will help you bear in mind the cultural differences you see, and regardless of the cultural differences, sometimes eye contact can reveal many other features of a person's quality and a person's character. Be careful though, because there are some cultures that we engage with now in our world life that are offended by direct eye contact, and you will need to be careful to selectively seek out whether that's appropriate or not. You don't want to show disrespect. Another professional improvement tip is choose your words carefully. Obtain interest from the start by maybe using a joke, an example of something, or asking a question. Avoid using foul or slang language. Avoid the use of but to join up sentences. The word but puts the listener on the defensive. Instead, use and when you join sentences. It is far more positive. My wife says to me sometimes, always remember and never forget. She uses that as a coined phrase to ensure that I'm listening to what she wants me to do and that I'm going to remember what she wants me to do. Always remember and never forget, rather than saying, don't forget. That's the difference. Whenever possible, you should always use I statements, as I said before, instead of you statements. I am troubled by what you just said to me, I would prefer that you speak to me in a different manner. Rather than, you just yelled at me, I don't like that. See how different it feels? The use of the you word always puts a listener on the defensive. You need to help your listener feel comfortable when they're speaking with you. Don't criticize what they are saying, even in your own mind. Be as clear and as specific as possible in all verbal communication, especially when you are asking someone to carry out a task for you. Understand the second party well and strive to know more about their thought process, their cultural background, and their educational background. They may be very different from you. A conversation's content must be stated with the listener in mind, not with you in mind. Give your undivided attention to everyone that you engage with. Being an active listener is very important for effective verbal communication. It's one thing to be a passive listener and just sit there and absorb what's being told to you. Then you're being spoken to. If you want to be spoken with, then you need to be an active listener, and that will engage the other person that you're communicating with. You need to rest your attention on the sound of the other person's voice. Pay full attention not only to what they're saying, but how they said it. Build rapport by observing the other person's verbal and body language and mirror it. Refrain from interrupting. Let the other person speak. Try not to form a response in your head before he or she finishes speaking. We all do that. We think what we want to say next before we listen to what is being said now. Avoid that trap. It's not a healthy way to communicate. Do not hold two conversations at the same time, and avoid interruption. Lastly, don't multitask when you're doing conversation. Stay focused on the task at hand, which is communicating with the other person. Another tip is I encourage you to emphasize important points when you're communicating. The best, perhaps, way to communicate an important point, raise your voice just slightly or speak deliberately, like I'm doing right now. Let your body language reflect the importance of what you are saying, to be leaning forward, open your eyes wider, or use an appropriate hand gesture. State the overall goal and objective to be covered in the conversation, and use meaningful analogies and stories which will help to emphasize your points. In other words, mix it up and make it more pleasant. Another tip, is to summarize or ask for a listener's summarization of what you just said. If you're not sure that the listener understands you, summarize what you have said in different words yourself, or simply ask him or her to summarize your message and state it back in their own words. For example, you might say, "Would you please tell me what you heard me say to you?" And let's see what they say. If they are not really coming back with what you intended them to have received, then repeat yourself in a different manner. Reframe the content that you're trying to share. I have two more tips to offer. The next one is observe response. Observing the response to your message is critical. You need to look for the subtle hints from the listener. You need to observe how well they are paying attention when you speak to them. You need to look for eye contact. You need to look for body language. You need to look for distractions that may be taking them away from the conversation you're having with them. In doing that, you need to modify your response accordingly and try to build a good understanding of the issues that you're presenting. What are people thinking is not always expressed verbally. Look for what they are not saying instead. I say that again. What people are thinking is not always expressed verbally. Look for what they are not saying. You may read people's responses by watching their facial expression and hand and foot gestures. If somebody's fidgeting all the while they're listening to you, you can be sure they're probably distracted by something internally. Look to their eyes for the signs of confusion, disagreement, disbelief, resistance, or understanding. A very common example of this is when somebody rolls their eyes because they don't believe what you're saying to them, or that they're just had enough and don't want to hear any more. Those are examples of gesture. Those are examples of clear indications that your communication isn't going so well with that person. The very last tip that I want to give you today is choose the setting and the time that you communicate with someone. Confidentiality is essential at all times in professional conversations. Remember that it may not be appropriate to speak about another person in his or her presence. If there is background noise, speak loudly or move to a quieter place. And in the case of excessive background noise, reinforcement of your verbal communication with gestures will often be helpful. So in conclusion, put together this package of suggested tips, and you may find that your communication will become more effective and more professional. And thanks for taking time with me today to come to this understanding and awareness. Have a pleasant day.